Hey gardening friends, ready to grow healthier plants, bigger harvests, and smarter gardens? Let's get started.
Have you ever done everything right with your roses and still watched one of them fall behind for no reason you could explain? What if the real gap between a thriving rose and a struggling one came down to 8 specific things most gardeners never hear about? Welcome to The Smart Gardener. If you grow roses and you want real answers, not the same recycled advice you have already read 100 times, hit that subscribe button right now because this channel is built for people who actually want to understand how plants work. Today we are going through 8 tricks that quietly determine whether your rose explodes with blooms all season long or just sits there looking sorry. Trick number 4 is going to feel completely backwards the first time you hear it. And trick number 8 is the one almost nobody talks about. But skip it and everything else on this list loses half its power. Let us get into it. Let's start at the very beginning. Because trick number 1 happens before your rose even wakes up for the season. Most grafted roses have a swollen knob near the base where the flowering variety was joined onto a tough rootstock. That joint is called the bud union. And where you set it relative to the soil line quietly controls how fast or how slowly your rose will ever grow. If you live in a warm climate like the South or California plant, so the bud union sits right at or just barely below the soil surface. If you are in the Midwest or the Northeast, bury it 2 to 4 inches deep. That depth protects it through winter without any extra straw or wrapping, anchors the plant against wind, and over time encourages the rose to grow its own roots above the graft, making it tougher and more vigorous for the long haul. Now, once the plant is in the ground, the next thing that quietly throttles more roses than almost anything else is how you water. Overhead watering feels generous, but up to 50% of that water evaporates before it ever reaches the roots on a hot day. And wet foliage is an open invitation for black spot. Roses need at least 1 inch of water per week during the growing season, delivered deep and slow right at the base. A long, thorough soak 2 or 3 times a week trains roots to chase moisture down 12 to 18 inches into the soil. Deep roots are drought-resistant roots, and deep roots are what power everything happening above ground. If you are on heavy clay soil out west, a soaker hose looped around each bush is the most reliable way to get water exactly where it needs to go. That brings us to feeding, and this is where roses flip the script on almost every other plant in your garden. Roses are flat-out greedy, and a rose running on empty simply cannot grow fast no matter what else you do. Feed with a balanced rose fertilizer when growth kicks off in spring, then again after each major flush of blooms. But here is the piece that separates good rose growers from great ones. Alfalfa. Plain alfalfa meal or pellets, the same stuff sold at feed stores, carries an NPK of 512 along with a natural compound called triacontanol, a genuine plant growth stimulant first identified by researchers back in the 1970s. Work about 1 cup into the soil around each large bush, or steep it in water for several days to make a tea and pour that on every 6 weeks through the season. Triacontanol triggers what rose growers call basal breaks, thick new canes shooting straight up from the base, and a bush throwing several of those in one season looks like a completely different plant by fall. Alright, here is trick number 4, and I want you to stay with me because every instinct you have as a gardener is going to push back on this one. To make your rose grow faster and bloom more, you need to take its flowers away from it, not just the faded ones. On a young or newly planted rose, remove the buds before they ever open. I know exactly how that sounds, but once you understand the biology, this becomes one of the most powerful tools you have. Here is what is happening inside the plant. When a faded bloom starts forming a seed pod, what growers call a hip, it releases a hormone called auxin that travels down through the plant and sends one clear message: mission accomplished, slow down now. Growth stalls, new buds stop forming, and your blooming season ends before it should. When you clip off each spent bloom before it can form that hip, cutting back to a leaf node with 5 leaflets angled outward, you break that hormonal signal completely. The plant never gets the message that its job is done. Instead, it releases cytokinin, a hormone that drives cell division and pushes out fresh shoots and a whole new round of flowers. That is the real science behind deadheading, and it is why a consistently deadheaded rose blooms in waves all season instead of one flush in silence. For a rose in its first year, take this even further and pinch off every single bud before it opens. Sacrifice the entire first season of flowers. Every bit of energy not spent on blooms goes straight into roots, canes, and structure. Think of it as choosing long-term strength over short-term satisfaction. The gardeners who do this end up with roses that outgrow and outbloom everything else in the bed for years. Trick number 5 challenges you in a different way. The single most common mistake even experienced gardeners make is being too gentle with the pruners. A timid trim sends a weak signal and gets a weak response. Thin, twiggy, tangled growth that goes nowhere. A bold prune concentrates all the stored energy in the root system into fewer growing points, and the plant answers with thick, fast, strong new shoots. In late winter or early spring, take it down hard into an open vase shape. 6 to 10 well-spaced canes radiating outward, with the center completely clear. That open center lets light reach deep into the plant and lets air move freely through the canopy, keeping foliage dry and disease at bay. Make each cut 1/4 of an inch above an outward-facing bud at a 45-degree angle, sloping away from the bud so water runs off cleanly. Always use a bypass pruner, not an anvil pruner. The bypass style makes a clean slice. The anvil style crushes the tissue, and crushed tissue invites infection. And if you spot any shoots emerging from below the bud union, those are suckers from the rootstock stealing energy from your rose. Do not cut them. Dig down to where they emerge and break them off at the root entirely. Trick number 6 is small, inexpensive, and targets something happening at the cellular level inside every leaf on your rose. Magnesium sits at the literal center of every chlorophyll molecule your plant produces. No magnesium, no chlorophyll, and without chlorophyll, those leaves cannot capture sunlight efficiently. The sign to watch for is older leaves turning yellow between the veins, while the veins themselves stay green. That pattern is the classic signature of magnesium deficiency, and it shows up most often in modern floribunda varieties that push out bloom after bloom and burn through nutrients fast. Work about 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt per foot of plant height into the soil in early spring, or dissolve it in water and pour it on every 2 weeks through the season. Combine that with the alfalfa meal from Trick 3, and you have the most powerful basil brake combination rose growers know. One caution: if your soil already has adequate magnesium, adding more competes with calcium and throws your nutrient balance off. When in doubt, do a simple soil test first. Trick number 7 works quietly underground, protecting everything you have already built. Bare soil around your rose swings hot and cold with the weather, loses moisture fast, and every time you water, it lets fungal spores splash up from the ground onto the lower leaves. That is exactly how black spot gets started. The fix is a generous layer of organic mulch. Lay down 1 inch of finished compost close to the plant, then top that with 2 inches of shredded bark mulch on the outside. That combination feeds the soil biology, holds moisture, regulates temperature, and physically blocks fungal spores from reaching the foliage. A proper mulch layer can cut soil moisture loss by nearly 50% and keep soil temperatures up to 20 degrees Fahrenheit cooler on a hot summer day. Keep the mulch pulled back about 2 inches from the base of the canes so air can circulate and moisture does not collect against the stems. Apply in early spring after pruning, then top it up again in late fall before the ground freezes. Now we have arrived at trick number 8, and this is the one that almost nobody talks about, even though it determines whether every single trick before it actually works. You can do everything else on this list perfectly, but if the pH of your soil is off, your rose cannot absorb any of those nutrients, no matter how generously you apply them. The chemistry simply does not function outside the right range. Roses need a soil pH between 6.0 and 6.5. Inside that window, every nutrient stays dissolved and available at the roots. Push above 7.0 and iron and manganese get locked in the soil, leaving your leaves yellow even though you are feeding consistently. Drop below 5.5 and phosphorus gets bound up, growth stalls, and the plant just sits there no matter what you do. Testing is simpler than most people think. Pick up a basic pH test kit at any garden center, or send a soil sample to your nearest state university cooperative extension office for around $15 to $20. You get back a full breakdown with specific amendment recommendations. 2 alkaline. Work in elemental sulfur at 1 pound per 40 square feet and retest after 6 to 8 weeks. 2 acidic. Add agricultural limestone. Also check your drainage. Dig a hole 18 inches deep. Fill it with water. And if it has not drained within 5 to 6 hours, build raised beds before you plant anything. Now let us bring it all the way back. 2 rose bushes, same garden, same sun, same rain. 1 thriving, 1 struggling. The difference was 8 things. The right planting depth, deep watering at the roots, feeding with alfalfa, removing spent blooms before they set hips, pruning hard into an open shape, a magnesium boost, a mulch blanket, and soil pH dialed into the right range before anything else happened. Apply even a few of these consistently, and you will see 2 to 3 times the growth and bloom. Which of these 8 were you missing? Drop it in the comments because I read every one. If this gave you something useful today, subscribe to The Smart Gardener so you never miss what comes next, and go watch the video on screen right now because it picks up exactly where this one leaves off.